A fist trembled against a heavy oak door. The knock barely sounded through the thick wood. She tried again. Harder. Her knuckles split against the iron studs and a thin line of blood ran down her wrist. She did not notice. She was holding back tears. The wind was bitter cold. Her dress was too thin for the weather. In one hand she clutched a small cloth bundle. Everything she owned. In the other, a folded letter sealed with red wax. Her father's seal. Inside that letter were 3 short lines that would change her life forever. The man behind the door did not know she was coming. His name was Edmund Hartley, and the words she was about to whisper would stop him cold in his tracks. What does a man do when a frightened girl on his doorstep apologizes for simply existing? Stay with me on this one. The door opened. The girl flinched. She actually stepped back. The man on the other side was not what she had pictured. She had pictured an old widower, gray at the temples, a stoop in his shoulders, a man who needed a strong country girl to scrub his floors and not ask questions. The man in the doorway was none of those things. He was tall, broad in the shoulders, maybe 40. His hair was dark and unkempt. His shirt sleeves were rolled to the elbow. There was ink on his fingers. His eyes were gray and tired and very kind. And right now those tired gray eyes were looking down at a half-frozen girl with bloody knuckles and a cloth bundle and a letter clutched against her chest. He stared. She stared. The wind blew between them. "Are you lost?" he said. His voice was low, quiet, the voice of a man who spoke to sick people all day. She could not answer. Her throat had closed. He looked at the letter, then at the bundle, then at her bleeding knuckles, and something in his face changed. "Come inside," he said, "before you fall down." He took her elbow, gently, the way he would take the elbow of a patient. He guided her through the doorway into a hall that smelled of wood smoke. The door closed behind her. The wind stopped. She had never been in a house like this. The floors were polished. There were shelves of books on the walls. A tall clock ticked in the corner. A black bag sat on a small table. A doctor's bag. She knew that much. He led her into a sitting room and pointed at a chair by the fire. "Sit," he said. She sat. He knelt down on one knee in front of her. He took her bleeding hand. He turned it over and looked at the split knuckles. He did not say anything about her dress or her shoes or her bundle. He looked at her hand. "You knocked too hard," he said. She nodded. He stood and walked out. She heard water running. He came back with a basin and a clean cloth. He sat across from her and washed her hand without a word. The water stung. She did not flinch. She had been cold so long the sting felt almost warm. He wrapped a strip of linen around her knuckles. His hands were sure. He tied it off and let her hand go. Only then did he sit back and look at her. "Now," he said, "will you tell me who you are?" Her free hand still held the letter. She held it out. He took it. He looked at the wax seal. He frowned. He broke it open. He read it. She watched his face. She watched it go from puzzled to still. Very, very still. He read it again. Slowly. As if the words might rearrange themselves into something else. He looked up. She felt the heat rise in her face. She felt her eyes fill. She had been holding it back for 2 days of walking and a night in a barn and a morning in the rain. Now, in this warm room, with the stranger looking at her with kind, tired eyes, something inside her cracked. She did not let herself cry. Not yet, but her voice shook when she spoke. "My father said you needed a wife," she whispered. "But I'm not what you expected. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." She closed her eyes. She waited for him to send her back out into the cold. He did not say anything for a long moment. Then he said a name. "Thomas Whitcomb." She opened her eyes. She nodded. "Your father is Thomas Whitcomb." She nodded again. He set the letter down on the table beside him. Very gently, like it might shatter. "I think," he said slowly, "we need to have a conversation. But first, Will you have a cup of tea? She could not answer. She just stared at him. He stood. He went to the kitchen. She heard him put a kettle on. She heard him moving cups. And she sat there by the fire and did the math. She had nowhere to go back to. Her father was dying. The room above the cobbler's shop where they had lived was already let to someone else. She had no relations. She had no money but the threepence in her shoe. She had walked 9 miles to the house of a stranger to be his wife. And she had been wrong. She would not cry. She would not give the world that much. She just sat very still and waited for the man with the kind, tired eyes to come back and tell her what would happen next. He came back with 2 cups of tea. He set hers on the table beside her. He took his own and sat across from her. He did not drink. He just held the cup in his hands like he was warming them. "Drink it," he said, "while it is hot." She picked up the cup. Her hands were still trembling. She got it to her lips. She drank. It burned. It was the best thing she had tasted in 2 days. "What is your name?" he said. "Mary. Mary Whitcomb." "Yes, sir. Mary. Don't call me sir. My name is Edmund." She nodded. He took a slow breath. He set down his cup. "Mary, I want to tell you something, and I want you to hear it before you say another word. I did not ask your father for a wife." She nodded. She had known. From the moment she had seen his face, she had known. "I have not seen your father in 3 months. The last time I saw him was at his house. I was treating him." "For the cough," she said. "Yes, for the cough. It is bad, Mary. You know it is bad." She nodded. She knew. "That day your father tried to pay me. He had a coin in his hand. I would not take it. I told him I do not take coin from a man who needs every coin to feed himself. I said, if a man helps another in a kindness, the only currency he asks is that it be repaid forward, to whomever needs it next." He paused. "Your father said something then. He looked at the empty rooms around me and he said, 'This is a big house, doctor.' I said yes. I said the house had been quiet for 2 years. I said sometimes I went whole days without speaking to anyone but my patients." He stopped. He looked at the floor. "Mary, that is the only thing I said. About the house. About being alone. I did not mean it as a request. I meant it as a fact. I was tired. I was complaining to a dying man because I was lonely, which is a thing I am ashamed of now." She did not say anything. "Your father took my kindness and my loneliness and put them together, and he wrote me a letter saying he was sending his daughter to repay a debt and to keep me from being alone." He looked at her. "That is not your fault, Mary. It is not mine either. It is your father loving you the only way he knew, and it was the wrong way, but I will not blame him for it." She let out a breath she had not known she was holding. "You are not angry," she said. "No, I am not angry. You are not going to send me out." He was quiet for a moment. "Mary, it is December. The sun goes down in 3 hours. The nearest village is 6 miles. You have a bundle and a bandaged hand and a thin dress. No, I am not going to send you out." She closed her eyes. "You will stay here tonight," he said. "There is a room upstairs. It has a bed. It has a quilt. You will sleep there. Tomorrow we will talk again. Tomorrow we will think about what to do next. But tonight you eat and you sleep. That is all you have to do." She tried to thank him. She could not get the words out. He stood. He took her empty cup. "Come," he said. "I will show you the room." She followed him up the stairs. The room was small. There was a narrow bed, a quilt folded at its foot, a washstand, a window that looked out on a field. He lit a candle. He put 2 pieces of wood in the small grate and lit them. The room began to warm. He went out and came back with a nightgown. Clean one. A woman's. He set it on the bed. "This was my wife's," he said quietly. "She would not mind. Sleep well, Mary." He left and closed the door. She stood very still in the middle of the small room. She held the nightgown to her chest. She did not move for a long time. She had been so braced for cruelty that kindness felt like a blow she could not absorb. She finally undressed. She put on the nightgown. It was too big. It smelled faintly of lavender. She got into the bed. She pulled the quilt up to her chin. She thought she would lie awake all night. She thought she would worry. She thought she would weep. Instead, she slept like the dead, the way only the truly exhausted sleep, with no dreams at all. She woke at dawn, out of habit. Her whole life she had woken at dawn. She lay there a moment, confused. The bed was warmer than her bed at home. The room smelled different. Then she remembered. She got up. She washed in the cold water on the washstand. She put her own dress back on. It had dried in the night. She folded the borrowed nightgown carefully and laid it on the bed. She tied her hair back with a piece of string from her bundle. She went downstairs. The house was quiet. The doctor was still asleep. She went to the kitchen. Now here is the thing. This is the part of the story I want you to slow down with me on. Because what happens next is small. But it matters. She looked around the kitchen. She saw a bowl of eggs on the table. She saw a loaf of bread. She saw a jar of butter. She saw a kettle and a stove and a pile of kindling. And something in her settled. This was the one place in the world she knew what to do. She built up the fire. She put the kettle on. She found a pan. She cracked 4 eggs. She cut thick slices of yesterday's bread and laid them in the pan with a little butter. She made tea. She found cups. She found plates. She set the small kitchen table for 2. When Edmund came down the stairs in his shirt sleeves, his hair still wet from washing, he stopped in the doorway. He looked at the table. He looked at her. He looked at the eggs, the bread, the tea steaming in the cup. He did not say anything for a moment. Then he sat down. He picked up his fork. He ate. "This is good bread," he said. She smiled. She could not help it. She sat down across from him. She ate too, slowly, carefully, because she did not want this moment to end. The sun came up behind the window. The kitchen was warm. The bread was good. And for one quiet hour Mary Whitcomb allowed herself the thing she had not allowed herself in a long time. She allowed herself to hope. The knock came at 10 in the morning. Mary was at the sink. She had washed the breakfast plates. She had swept the kitchen. She had found a basket of mending and sat herself by the fire to make herself useful. She had a needle in her hand and a sock over her fingers, and she was humming. Actually humming. The first sound of joy from her chest in weeks. The knock froze her solid. The needle hung in midair. Edmund came out of his study. He looked at her. He saw the look on her face. "Stay there," he said quietly. "Whoever it is, stay there." He went to the door. She heard the latch lift. She heard a woman's voice. Sharp. "Hi." The kind of voice that has been waiting all morning to say what it was about to say. "Dr. Hartley. Mrs. Pritchard. May I come in?" "You are already in." The voice came closer. Mary shrank back in her chair. She set the mending down. "Doctor, I do not enjoy this errand. I want you to know that. I am here as a friend. Mrs. Pritchard, we have not been friends. We have been neighbors. Say what you came to say. There is talk in the village. There is always talk in the village. A woman was seen on the road yesterday, walking toward this house. A young woman, alone, carrying a bundle. A long silence. And she did not come back out of this house, doctor. Many people come into my house, Mrs. Pritchard. Some of them stay several days. They are called patients. Is she a patient? Another silence. She is my guest. Doctor, you are a widower. You live alone. You have no housekeeper. You have no sister. You have no mother. If there is a young woman in this house tonight when the sun goes down, you will not have a practice on Monday. People will not bring their children to a doctor who keeps a girl. They will not. Mary closed her eyes. She felt every word land. Mrs. Pritchard, This young woman's father is gravely ill. She came to me yesterday in distress. She slept under my roof because the alternative was to send her out at nightfall into a December storm. If you believe that act condemns her, then there is no kindness left in our village, and we should none of us bother going to church anymore. A silence so long Mary thought the woman had left. By Sunday, doctor. By Sunday this must be resolved. Properly. Either she leaves, or there is a wedding. There is no other path. I hear you. I hope you do. The door opened. The door closed. Mary heard Edmund stand in the hall for a long time, not moving. Then he came back into the kitchen. She was already standing. She had her bundle in her hand. The borrowed nightgown was folded on the table. I will go, she said. Right now. Before anyone sees me leave. I will go through the field. I will not ruin you. Sit down. Edmund. Sit down, Mary. She did not sit. She stood with the bundle in her hand. She was shaking. Where will you go? He said. She did not answer. Mary, where will you go? Back to my father. Your father is dying. He wrote that letter because he knew he was dying. He wrote it because he did not know what would happen to you when he was gone. If you go back, you will sit at his bedside and you will watch him die, and then you will have nothing. No house, no coin, no work, nothing. And you will be a young woman alone in a village that talks. Tell me what your village will say to a young woman alone with no father. She did not answer. She knew. I am not letting you walk out of this door today, Mary. Not into that. She set the bundle down. Slowly, she sank back into the chair. Then what? She whispered. Then I am going to ride to your father's house tomorrow. And we are going to ride together. And we are going to sit with him. And we are going to figure out what is right. Together. The three of us. He is too ill to ride to. Then I will come to him. I am a doctor. I am allowed. She started to cry. She had not cried yet. Not really. Now she did. Quiet, hard, shoulder-shaking crying. Edmund did not move to comfort her. He did not touch her. He just sat across from her and let her cry. He poured her another cup of tea. He pushed it toward her. She drank it through tears. I want to stop right here, before this story turns again, and ask you something. Because the next part of what Edmund Hartley does is going to surprise you. If you have ever been the one nobody thought enough of to choose, this story is going to mean something to you. If you are still with me, take 1 second and hit that subscribe button. It is the only thing I will ask of you. Then come back, because this is where the story turns. They left at dawn the next morning. Edmund put her up on his horse, in front of him with the doctor's bag tied behind. He wrapped his greatcoat around her shoulders. The horse was a heavy bay, patient, sure-footed. They rode in silence for the first hour. The road was hard with frost. Their breath made white clouds in front of them. After a while she said, very small, "What if he has died in the night? Then we will bury him properly. What if he is angry that you came? Then he can be angry. I will still come. What if I am not what either of you wants?" He did not answer that one for a long moment. Then he said, "Mary, stop apologizing for being yourself. Just for today. Just for the next 2 hours. Can you do that for me?" She did not answer, but she stopped speaking, and she let herself lean back, just slightly, against the chest of the man behind her, just enough to feel that he was there. Her father's house was at the end of a long lane. It was a low cottage with a sagging roof and a single chimney that leaked smoke into the gray sky. There was nobody on the lane. There was no smoke from any of the other houses. The fields were empty. Edmund tied the horse to the gate. He lifted Mary down. She did not let go of his arm. She pushed open the door. The smell hit her first. The smell of a sick room. She knew it. She had been living with it for months. "Father!" A weak voice from the inner room. "Mary!" She ran in. Edmund followed at a quieter pace, the doctor's bag in his hand. Thomas Whitcomb lay in the small bed under 3 blankets. He was smaller than he had been a week ago. His eyes were sunken. His lips were white. But he was alive. He turned his head when she came in. "You are home." "Yes, father." Did he? Did he? She did not know how to answer. She held his hand and she could not speak. Edmund stepped forward. He set down the bag. "Mr. Whitcomb." The old man turned his eyes. He saw Edmund. He saw the bag. Something moved in his face. He understood. He understood everything in a single look. "You came back." "I did." "You should not have come." "I had to." Old Tom closed his eyes. A tear ran down his temple into the pillow. "I am sorry," he whispered. "I am sorry, Doctor. I thought when you spoke of the empty house. I thought. I know what you thought, Thomas. I know. I have no one else for her. I know. I am dying tonight. I can feel it. I am dying tonight, Doctor. And she will have no one." Edmund knelt down by the bed. He took the old man's hand. He took Mary's hand too. He held them both. "Thomas, listen to me. I am going to tell you something and I need you to hear me clearly. I did not ask for a wife. That much is true. I have been alone for 2 years and I told myself I would always be alone. I am too old. I am too tired. I told myself I had had my chance and the chance was over." Mary did not breathe. "Your daughter came to my door yesterday. She was half frozen. She was bleeding. She apologized to me for being herself. Do you understand what I am saying, Thomas? The first thing she said to me was sorry. She was sorry for existing on my doorstep." The old man wept silently. "I sat her by the fire. I gave her tea. I gave her a bed. She slept under my roof. This morning she came down to my kitchen before I was awake. She built up my fire. She made me breakfast. She humbled me, Thomas, because in 2 years no one has lit my fire. No one has set my table. No one has hummed in my kitchen." He paused. He looked at Mary. His gray eyes were not tired now. They were full. "I am not a young man, Mary. I am not the husband you ought to dream of. I have lost a wife. I have lost a child. There is a sadness in me that will not all the way go away. You should know that before I say what I am about to say." She nodded. She could not speak. "But your father did not understand me wrong, Thomas. He understood me too well. I am lonely. And in one morning your daughter made my kitchen warm in a way it has not been warm in 2 years. So, if she will have me, knowing what I am, knowing what I have lost, knowing what I cannot promise, then I will have her, not as a debt, not as a favor, as a choice." Mary turned. Her face was wet. "But," she whispered, "but I'm not what you expected." He looked at her. He smiled. A small, tired, true smile. "No, Mary, you are not what I expected. You are far more." Old Tom let go of a sound that was half laugh and half sob. He squeezed both their hands. "Bless you," he whispered. "Bless you. Bless you." Edmund stood. He looked at Mary. "I am going to ride for the vicar. Right now. Will you wait for me here?" She nodded. "Will you have me, Mary?" She nodded. "Say it out loud." "Yes," she said. "Yes, Edmund. I will have you." He rode off. The horse's hooves rang on the frozen lane. Mary sat by her father's bed and held his hand and listened to his shallow breathing, and she did not let go. He drifted in and out. Once he opened his eyes and said her name. Once he opened his eyes and said her mother's name. Once he opened his eyes and saw her and smiled. The vicar came at 3 in the afternoon. He brought his book and a small candle and a startled look on his face. Edmund had not given him much warning. But the vicar knew Edmund. The vicar trusted Edmund. And when the vicar saw the old man in the bed and the young woman holding his hand, the vicar understood without being told. It was a small wedding. There was no music. There was no flower. The witnesses were the dying father in the bed and a neighbor woman they had fetched from down the lane. Mary wore the same dress she had walked 9 miles in. Her hair was tied back with the same piece of string. The bandage was still on her knuckles. Edmund slid a ring onto her finger. "It was my mother's," he said quietly, so only she could hear. "I would not put my first wife's ring on you. You are not her. You are you." She closed her eyes. She felt the ring slide on. It was a little loose. She would have to close her hand to keep it. The vicar spoke the words. Edmund spoke his answers. Mary spoke hers. Old Tom in the bed whispered his blessing. He kissed his daughter's hand. He looked at Edmund and tried to say something and could not. Edmund leaned down. "I will love her, Thomas. I will love her. I swear it to you." Old Tom smiled. He closed his eyes. He died that night, just after midnight, with his daughter's hand in his and her husband sitting in the chair beside her. They buried Thomas Whitcomb 3 days later in the small churchyard behind the old stone church. There were not many mourners. There never are, for a poor man at the edge of his time. But there were enough. Mrs. Pritchard came. She did not say much. She nodded to Edmund. She nodded more slowly to Mary. She did not look pleased. But she did not look as if she planned to fight either. She had heard about the wedding. The whole village had heard. A wedding at a deathbed has a kind of weight that gossip cannot quite cut through. After the burial, Edmund took Mary home. To their home. That word took her weeks to get used to. Our home. My house. My kitchen. My chair by the fire. She would catch herself stopping at the threshold of a room, as if she still needed permission to enter. Edmund would look up from his book and find her standing there, and he would smile and say, "Mary, come in. It is your room too." She would come in. She would sit down. And little by little it became true. Now here is the thing. I want to tell you what kind of marriage they had. Because it was not the kind of marriage anyone in that village had expected. He did not treat her like a maid. He never had. He treated her like a wife from the first morning. He taught her her letters by the fire in the evenings. He gave her the run of his books. He found her his late mother's old letters in French, and he laughed and said his mother would have liked her. He bought her a winter coat, proper one, with a fur collar. She wore it the first time and stood in front of the small mirror in the hall, and she did not recognize the woman she saw. She kept his house. She kept it well. The kitchen was always warm. There was always bread. There was always hot water for the patients who came to the side door. She learned the names of his medicines. She learned which patients liked tea and which liked broth and which liked to be left alone. The village watched. The village waited for proof of something to gossip about. The village did not get it. Mrs. Pritchard came to the side door one morning in March. She had a basket on her arm. There were eggs in the basket and a small loaf of bread. She held it out to Mary without quite meeting her eyes. "From my hens," she said. "And my oven. I thought you might. Anyway." Mary took the basket. She did not know what to say. "I was wrong," Mrs. Pritchard said, quickly, to the door frame. "About the doctor. And about you. I see it now. The way he is. The way you are. I was wrong." She left before Mary could answer. Mary stood in the doorway with the basket and the cold March wind on her face. She watched Mrs. Pritchard straight back walk down the lane. She closed the door. She walked into the kitchen. She set the basket on the table. She did not tell Edmund about it. Not that day. Some kindnesses you keep to yourself. One evening in April, she asked him the question she had been carrying for months. They were by the fire. He was reading. She was darning a sock. She set the sock down. "Edmund." "Yes." "Why did you do it?" He looked up. He set his book down. He waited. "You did not have to," she said. "You could have written my father a kind letter. You could have given me a coin and sent me to a position in some other house. You did not have to marry me. So why did you?" He was quiet for a while. "With my first wife," he said finally, "I always felt like the lucky one, like she had been gracious enough to choose me. I loved her. She loved me. But there was always that she had chosen me, and I had been chosen. With you, Mary, I got to choose. I got to look at a woman standing in my doorway apologizing for being herself, and I got to say, I see her. I want her. I choose her. That is a thing I did not know I needed until I had it. To choose knowing what I was choosing. To choose having lost everything once already, and to choose anyway. That is why. She looked at him. Her eyes filled. And he said, You came to my door apologizing for being yourself. I told myself the first night you slept under my roof. I told myself, I will spend whatever days I have left teaching her to never apologize for that again. She cried. Not hard. Not the cracked open crying of those first days. Just the quiet, full crying of a woman who has finally been told something she has waited her whole life to hear. Then she laughed. Just once. A small wet laugh. You are a foolish man, Edmund Hartley. I am. I know. I am glad of it. That spring she took the cloth bundle she had carried to his door and put it away in the back of a drawer. It was empty now. She did not throw it away. She would not. Some things you keep even when they no longer carry anything, because they remind you of who you were on a day when you walked into the wind. Years later, when there was a child in the house, and another, and a small surgery built onto the back of the kitchen, Mary would sometimes answer the door for a patient. She would open it and find a frightened person on the threshold, cold, or bleeding, or ashamed, and she would always say the same thing, Come inside, before you fall down. And she would mean it, because she remembered the day a man had said it to her. And she remembered who she had been on the other side of that door. And she remembered who she became, the moment he reached out and took her elbow, gently, and brought her in.